you draw a single straight line across the map of China, you unlock an anomaly. This diagonal boundary runs from the northern town of Haihe down to Tengchong. It is called the Hu Line, and it splits the country into two worlds. To the west lies over half of China's landmass. Yet this massive territory holds only 6% of the entire population. To the east, over 1.3 billion people are packed together, living inside a hyper-dense, concrete pressure cooker. But as we look at new demographic data, a silent crisis is emerging. Hidden revisions, an unyielding age wall, and missing data pools tell a terrifying story. The world's manufacturing heart is facing a sudden structural collapse. This is the investigative dossier of China's true population structure. Official state reports have long claimed that China's total population stands at 1.4 billion. But independent demographic reconstructions reveal a massive mathematical deception, with calculations showing a structural over-reporting of over 100 million people. Leading demographers from the University of Wisconsin estimate the actual population is closer to 1.28 billion. This massive gap is the result of decades of compounding statistical fabrications. Local officials routinely inflated numbers to match strict state growth projections. Between 1991 and 2000, state bureaus claimed 203 million births occurred, but actual census counts fell far short of these artificial predictions. To cover the error, authorities retroactively added millions of ghost individuals to the books. True reconstructions show only 164 million births actually happened during that period, meaning over 40 million non-existent people were added to the ledger in a single decade. Senior local analysts admit family planning bureaus overstated birth rates by 30%, doing so to justify administrative budgets and secure political promotions. By 2019, the real total fertility rate had plummeted to just 1.1, yet official state planning models continued insisting the fertility baseline was still 1.8. The underlying engine driving this data manipulation is the Hukou household registration framework. Central government subsidies, school funds, and infrastructure cash are all distributed by population counts, leaving municipal authorities highly incentivized to keep fake residents on their local ledgers. Correcting the data would trigger an immediate, devastating cut to local budgets. So the fiction persists. For decades, planners tried to push the population towards the empty West, launching massive high-speed rail lines and state-funded relocation projects targeting the frontier. Yet, the dramatic human imbalance across the Hu Line remains completely unchanged. The reason is not political will, but absolute ecological barriers. The fertile eastern zone sits in the path of humid, monsoonal weather systems, where abundant rainfall and low plains allowed agriculture and megacities to flourish. The Western Territory, by contrast, is locked in permanent, severe aridity. Enormous mountain ranges like the Himalayas block moisture from entering the region entirely. This rain shadow forces air to dump its water on the southern slopes, and as dry air descends into the west, it absorbs moisture directly from the land. The result keeps average annual precipitation below 156 millimeters, a threshold that imposes a hard ceiling on human carrying capacity. Western China is physically unable to support hyperscale urban centers. While climate change has brought temporary wet cycles, it simultaneously creates severe hazards with rapidly melting glaciers, triggering frequent flash floods and destructive mudslides. Xinjiang's current water resource exploitation rate has already reached a staggering 65%, far exceeding the globally recognized ecological danger threshold of 40%. The West is burning through its fragile water reserves simply to survive, leaving zero excess capacity to support relocated industries or migrating millions. Most global superpowers use foreign immigration to offset a shrinking domestic workforce, but China's integration into the global economy remains demographically one-sided. Foreign-born residents make up just 0.05% of the total population, and high-value expatriate networks from developed nations are currently collapsing. In Beijing, the famous South Korean enclave of Wangjing, which once hosted over 120,000 South Korean residents and businesses, has hollowed out completely. A severe 2017 diplomatic dispute over missile shields triggered state-backed boycotts, and a wave of targeted regulations and anti-Korean sentiment forced schools and markets to shutter. Combined with extreme pandemic border closures, a mass corporate exodus followed, and today, Wangjing's distinct international character has been erased by local reoccupation. A similar state-led dismantling occurred in Guangzhou's Xiaobei trading district, known as Little Africa, and once the global hub for low-end globalization. Tens of thousands of African merchants had settled there to purchase wholesale manufactured goods, but state anxieties over ethnic homogeneity triggered aggressive police crackdowns. Authorities weaponized a strict 2013 migration law to target visa overstayers, and frequent identity checks and constant surveillance transformed the once vibrant neighborhood. The registered African population in Guangzhou plummeted from tens of thousands down to just 4,000. Meanwhile, Shanghai's Little Tokyo enclave in Gubei faces its own structural stagnation, as rising apartment rents have made expat packages prohibitively expensive for foreign firms, pushing multinationals to scale back foreign staff and localize management to cut costs. China is navigating its demographic crisis entirely alone, without the safety valve of foreign labor pools that other aging economies rely upon. The long legacy of strict population planning has built a dangerous age inversion matrix, best understood as the 4-2-1 family crisis. A single working child must be financially responsible for 2 parents and 4 grandparents simultaneously. This massive dependency ratio places an unprecedented burden on young workers. Today, China's senior population, aged 60 and above, has climbed to 320 million, already accounting for nearly 23% of the entire nation. That graying wave will only expand. By 2040, the number of elderly citizens is expected to skyrocket past 400 million. And by 2050, seniors will make up over 1/3 of the total population. Compounding this structural imbalance is the staggering economic cost of modern child rearing. Raising one child to age 18 costs over 538,000 RMB, roughly $75,000, and in major urban centers, that price spikes past 667,000 RMB, equivalent to more than $93,000. Relative to income, this cost is over 6 times China's GDP per capita, a ratio significantly higher than those found in America or Japan. This financial barrier is not merely discouraging larger families, it is discouraging family formation altogether, locking fertility rates at historic lows with no meaningful reversal in sight. To stop a total collapse of its social security net, China has launched its first statutory adjustment to retirement ages in 70 years. Phased in over 15 years, the reform systematically raises the national working age across the board. The retirement age for male employees is climbing from 60 up to 63, while female blue-collar workers see their retirement delayed from 50 to 55, and female white-collar management staff are pushed from 55 up to 58. The transition operates through a highly complex cohort system based on exact birth months. A male worker born in early 1965 must work 1 extra month, while a female factory worker born in mid-1975 must work 2 additional months with each successive cohort, absorbing a slightly larger increment. Alongside these age hikes, the minimum pension contribution period is being aggressively raised. Starting in 2030, the threshold increases by 6 months every single year, climbing from a 15-year baseline up to a mandatory 20-year contribution minimum. This change heavily penalizes informal migrant workers, who already suffer from fragmented career paths and inconsistent employment records. For many, logging's 20 continuous years of contributions will prove impossible, effectively locking them out of the pension system entirely. This demographic shift has triggered an acute fiscal emergency rippling across regional networks. Actuarial warnings show the National Basic Pension Fund faces complete depletion by 2035, with the system's cumulative surplus set to peak soon before entering a rapid downward slide. The crisis is severely worsened by extreme regional economic imbalances between provinces. Older industrial Rust Belt zones in the northeast face permanent pension insolvency, with regions like Heilongjiang carrying high concentrations of retirees, but very few active young workers to fund them. Youth populations have fled the frozen north for wealthier coastal electronics hubs, hollowing out the contribution base and leaving these provinces structurally unable to cover their own obligations. To stop local defaults, the central government enforces a national pooling mechanism, transferring over 210 billion yuan annually from high surplus provinces. Cash from wealthy southern hubs like Guangdong is redirected to cover northern deficits. While this pooling temporarily balances the scales, it faces deep political and economic resistance. Wealthy southern provinces, whose local finances are already buckled by catastrophic real estate revenue collapses, are increasingly unwilling to subsidize a demographic crisis they did not create. The shrinking of China's primary labor pool is fundamentally transforming its industrial sector. China's historic economic miracle was entirely sustained by an endless supply of cheap labor, but that demographic dividend has officially ended, causing sharp and sustained manufacturing wage inflation. Average annual wages in urban non-private manufacturing units have surged dramatically, and the official labor cost index remains pinned in continuous expansion territory. These soaring wages, combined with increasingly strict regulatory environments, mean that China is simply no longer a low-cost manufacturing destination. This loss of competitiveness is forcing factories to relocate labor-intensive work to cheaper alternatives. Textiles and basic electronics assembly lines are fleeing rapidly to Southeast Asia, with Vietnam, India, and Indonesia emerging as the primary beneficiaries. Other supply chains are nearshoring directly to Mexico to maintain access to Western consumer markets. The intersection of statistical inflation, ecological boundaries, and near-zero immigration creates a historic and compounding challenge. If the true population is over 100 million smaller than advertised, then the global assumptions underpinning international policy toward China are built on faulty data. A smaller, older population means the superpower faces a permanent structural growth drag that no policy announcement can paper over. To survive this reality, the state is prioritizing massive investment in automation, artificial intelligence, and robotics, betting that high-tech productivity can replace the missing millions of workers. But this pivot demands immense capital precisely when pension costs are exploding and fiscal reserves are under siege. The statutory age extensions buy vital time, but they cannot rewrite biology. China's future dominance depends entirely on how it manages a society that is graying faster than it ever planned for. The global manufacturing engine has officially hit its ultimate demographic wall. If you want to continue learning more about modern China, then make sure to subscribe, and see you in the next video.